Howdy, hackers, and welcome to another episode of FairLight TV. I've had a very entertaining discussion with SLC of Nostalgia, and this is the reason for this episode. He was indicating to me that there was a bit of an issue with star pause. Ripping that tape could be resulting in working or non-working version due to a very devious little protection trick that we will go through today. So join me for that. So when tapes load, the only real protection that is there is the actual auto start. And then, of course, you could have programmatical protections, the overloading and encryption and decryption and trashing of code that you already executed, and a few of those things. But the actual copy protection is merely the fact that it is on tape and it starts automatically. So you can't just load and then save it to some other device. But there is a little trick that has been used for a number of games, and that one we're going to go through today. It is the fact that the game knows the length of the tape. Because one of the methods for copying tapes was having those double deckers. So you put the original tape in one side of your double decker, and then you had another one, and then you just let it copy, and then the copy would hopefully work sometimes. It's not a very good, it's very analog way of copying, so which means that every generation deteriorates, and it might even be so that even the first instance of that copy wouldn't work. But with this trick, the producers of Star Paws actually ensured that the copy wouldn't work. And the trick is based on the fact that the game detects when the play button is released. So when you press play on tape, you let the game run, and then at the end of the tape decks does that and then releases the play button, and you could detect from software that the play button has been released. So the game measures the time it takes from when the tape ends until the play button is released, and if that duration is too short or too long, then the game would crash. It wouldn't make a few small adjustments that makes it runnable. Very devious, and it seems that the producer actually sold the games in multiple instances. So it was for instance, in the compilation tape, and those compilation tapes seemingly had the issue that they didn't change that parameter. So if you run it from those compilation tapes, Star Pause would actually not work unless you press stop after loading the game, and you couldn't do it immediately. You needed to do it after like an interval of a few seconds. I'll dig through that, and you will see the actual code that is involved in making this happen. So let's go over to that. So as I showed you in the last episode, I did a bit of testing with this to see the things that actually were different after loading a few of the tapes here. So I took a number of snapshots before loading from the working tape, and then I also had a non-working tape, and I took a number of snapshots, and then I used my my tool for checking the differences. And let's just see if we can do that. My dump diff here. So here you see that, and then we do run run.bat, I hope we would use. Okay, so here you see our number of zero page addresses in the beginning, and then stack. Yeah, I guess we could skip that. That's probably not one of the issues we would have. So all I I felt I needed to deep dive into were these. So I started tracking the changes of these and see why they became different in the different versions. And then I tried loading the game again, looking for changes to those values. And a number of them were consistent over my load. So the copy yielded a number of consistent values, and also the working original also kind of yielded consistent values, and it showed the last ones, they are just sort of random patterns in uninitialized memory, so they were not really relevant. It had to be one of those other things. So, and what we should look at now are these 8000E and 8000F. Yeah, I think it's actually 8010 as well. But so these are the ones that the next steps actually revealed being absolutely relevant, and we will get over to that. Okay, so I set a breakpoint here to 571D. I don't know if you can see it. If you watch this on a mobile, it might be difficult, but at least it's there on 571D. And let's just load here. So Shift Run Stop, Shift Escape if you're running Vice on Windows, and then we do play. So I'll show you this, and we will speed this up. Star pause, and you can actually see full loading process just in like 8.5 times the original speed. This is sort of cute, this spray can producing the loading picture. And we have Captain Rover Paws C64 from the UK seemingly. And you can see here it's still loading to 83, and I think we're loading to 137-ish or wherever it was. And one of the things I would like you to pay attention to, I might need to unwarp it here around 130. So, is that you would see press space on the screen where the play button is still sort of pressed. It is green down here, which means that the play button is still pressed. Okay, so I actually, yeah, my freeze point actually captures the game while the play button is still pressed, but it has concluded loading, right? Okay, so I'll show you this 571D. So what this one is doing here, and I should highlight this, is that it loads from address 01, where bit 4 detects tape motor. So if you run, if you watched one of my previous episode on transferring tapes, this is one of the bits that you set in order to ensure that you stop the tape motor when you're doing something else, like saving. Most important things where you really need the tape to sit still while you do other things, and then you can release it again by enabling the tape motor. But this is the other way around. This is the tape deck signaling to the computer that the tape motor is now not operational. And the reason why that happens is that the play button is released. So what happens here, and I might be able to do a bit more for you. So you load from address 01, you validate if this one is set. If it's not, it's jumping over here. So as long as the play button is pressed, it increases 80OE and 80OF. So this is a counter that counts how long after the game has concluded loading that you are having the play button pressed. So this is a counter. it keeps running, and then the game starts, and then the game continues, and this timer is now set to the length, and the game can now check 8000E and 8000F to validate if the play button has been pressed long enough to ensure that it was loaded from a physical length tape that was appropriate for this game. Let's go through the actual validation of where the game checks for these parameters. Okay, we are at 571D now, so the loading process has interrupted here. And the next thing I would like to do is see where the 8000F is used. So let's do bank RAM. You can, of course, just check the bank and see if it's already RAM, but I mean, take it as a habit to just ensure that you have bank RAM, so everything is working against the RAM of the computer. The next thing would be to hunt from that address to that address. Okay, so we see here that we have, what would that be? 6 instances. This one we already know because we are at 571D. This one is that one. Okay, so 571D. So you have this checking of LDA 1 and then validating that 4th bit, and then when that bit is 0, no, when it's 1, yeah, when it's 1, so the motor is still running, then it keeps increasing that counter. Okay, so and let's see there again. So we do 13 and then like B0. Okay, so here we see this. So at B8, it's doing very much the same thing. So it seems that there are, I mean, when the interrupt is running, perhaps one time it's running this and perhaps one time it's running that. It's handing over from one to the other. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. But this part of the program is also doing this, comparing the 4th bit of 01 and then increasing if the motor is still running. Okay, and then we have 3638. So 3640. Okay, here. Okay, 364B. 364B. Okay, so it's what this is doing. It's loading from 8000F and then sort of executing things based on that. So that one is for sure interesting. We'll have a look at that one afterwards. Just validating the other instances. 6868. Yeah. So it's here. It's just garbage, or it's graphics or music data or something else, but it's surely not code. BB10. Same would be valid here. It's here, and this is really not code. And then D980, it would be very unlikely that this would be something valid because it's under IO. It's even under the color RAM here. Yeah, it's here. So yeah, this is for sure also not something relevant. But the 36 here is really interesting. So 36 30. Yeah, it's doing things, and then we do this. So 36 4B, break 36 4B. Okay, so what this is doing, it's loading the high byte of 8000F. It's comparing with 0. And if it is 0, it should execute this part, whatever this is doing. The next thing is comparing it, again, comparing the high byte with 6. And if it's greater than, if it's less than 6, then it's jumping to the RTS. So this portion here is run if the high byte of the counter is 0 or 6 and above. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would trigger, that would safely take you from not executing those few lines of code. So these lines of codes are the ones trashing parts of the memory that causes the game to crash. We do not want those little instructions to be run, because they would be bad for the game. We would like to eliminate that. So let's see where we have now. We have break, and we can disable the first one. And then 364B, just to ensure that we are absolutely correct. Yes, this is the place. So it's quite clear to me that we do not want the routine to run the instructions from 3654 to 3661, because they would be trashing parts of the memory. We would like it to sort of exit here. And there are two ways to do that. Either way, or there are multiple ways of doing it. You could just set an RTS up here. So 364B, setting that to 60. That would take care of this routine never being executed. The other thing you can do is to fill it with 60. Because we have to assume that this is not something we would like to have executed. And, well, possibly it could be so that this routine is doing parts that you might want. No, that couldn't be the case, because it's not supposed to be executed. If it's executed in any shape or form, that means that the protection has triggered the fact that the play button was pressed not too short, but also not too long. It was pressed for a reasonably within the boundaries of what the protection sees as the remainder of the tape, and nothing less and nothing more. So if you copy stuff to a longer tape, the value would be higher, and it would be beyond the 6, and the trigger, that would mean that you would have the protection run those instructions, and that would trash the game. If you copy it to a very short game, which stops the button directly, which also would be the case if you would have if you just copy it to disk, and then you try to compile it from the disk. You take the segments and you make it into a file without having a counter counting this 8000F upwards, then it's probably 0 to begin with, and then that would also trigger. So you would have the failure both from being 0 and also from being 6 and above. It needs to be pressed, that play button needs to be pressed the proper amount of seconds after the game has finished loading, or the game would trigger this. Yes, I think that was sort of it. I'd like to bring you a bit of a bonus thing here, because yeah, it's so cute, I just have to show it. I downloaded a number of the version on CSDB, and the FairLight version, I was looking for this 8000F, but it seemingly wasn't there. So my assumption has to be that the FairLight version was cracked from disk, because otherwise the detection here on the play button would be available also in the FairLight version if it wasn't patched out or something. But the code doesn't look 100% the same, so it's not placed at the very same location. So my assumption is that they didn't implement the tape thing there, which means that of course it isn't available in the disc version. I have to give special credits to Gollum for the +3 trainer he has there, because it's an in-game trainer where you press the F keys to toggle, and it uses the GUI of the original game to present everything. It's really, really cute. I must say that special chapeau to Gollum for that. The other one, which is also something that was a bit scary at first, but then it became really cute. So I would like here to, let's, do I have that? No, I should be able to scroll. Yes, now I should be able to scroll. So this is a triad version. Dum. Okay, so here we have the triad version of the game, and if we look at 8000F, we see a value of 0. As we established in the previous segments here, a value of 0 means that the game was sort of ripped and there was no counter counting. And if it's 6 and beyond, the tape has seemingly been copied to another physical tape where the physical tape was too long, so the counter was going beyond the 6. That was the boundary here. 0 would indicate that this game bugs. Would this be like the first instant of a Mr. Z error? Do we have it here? That would be very special, because Star Paws isn't just like any game. It's a rather special game. So scanning for 8000F, I know where this is detected. It is detected in 363B. 4B. Should be 4B here. No, Sultan replaced this with an RTS. So the routine that checks just does an RTS and then it goes off. And he nicely also filled the rest of the routine with zeros, which is good because then it compacts better. In theory, you could gain, if this is the difference between 125 blocks and 124 blocks, this could very well be that. But there is something else. There is a little thing here. Looks like characters. So let's see what that is. It's 364C. 364C. So what we have here is Mr. Z poking in his handle backwards. Mr. Z. So cute patch, Sultan. I don't think anybody else would have dug into this, but I found it and I was really worried that you actually messed up. But of course, Mr. Z never messes up. So well done. Having found Sultan's little patch with his name in reverse, I had to go through all the versions I could find on CSDB, and I just downloaded the original versions, those with an import intro that didn't change anything. I mean, the original game cracked by the original group is still the same regardless of the number of import intros. So I've skipped that, and the total number of versions I found was what is that, 27. And As I've told you repeatedly here in the video, the counter in the interrupt is counting up unless the play button is pressed. So it needs to be pressed, so the value that the game leaves over is between 1 and 5. So, and I've looked at 8000F in all the versions I could find, and I also took a look at 364B, which is where the protection or the validation of 8000F sits. Okay, so Cleveland, they are 5, which means they are good. TDU, they are 2, they are good. Sodom, 1, they're good. It's really interesting that they are different. One Way, 3, so they are good. Magic Circle, 3, so they are good. Royal Crackers, 1, so they are good. Cristiano Christ, oops, they are 0. But they have patch 36 4B. How did they patch it? It is an exact copy of what Sultan did, including this Mr. Z in reverse. I'm not saying this is a recrack. They could have been inspired by Sultan, but I would say this is sort of taking Sultan's fix and implementing it in their own version without realizing that they were also copying Sultan's trademark in the process. Shield 0, but it's unpatched, so that version is buggy. That should eventually crash. Beastie Boy, it's not Beastie Boys, it's Beastie Boy. 0, unpatched, that one should also bug. Stegman 1, so that's good. Wolf Team 1, so that should be good. Creative Crackers of Darkness. Cracking Team of Darkness, I think. 3, so they are also good. Relax 3, and so they are also good. In their text, they are referencing FairLight's version, assuming it's sort of not working in the bonus screen. I haven't been able to validate that, but there is a reference complaining about the FairLight version as I read it. FairLight's version has FF in this place. And as I stated earlier, it is different. So the reading of 8000F is not there. There is other code that looks like it should be there. So my assumption is that that is from the disk version, and hence they didn't have to, or Gollum didn't have to have a look at the tape protection on this one. IC and Goonies, or IC was the cracker and Goonies was the group, I think. So 1, and they were also good. Cache, they had FB, and that one is also different. So I would say that that is the same disk version. I haven't compared it with the FairLight version, but I would assume that the sort of source is the same, and that is the disk. Again, I'm doing a bit of guesswork here because I haven't validated the originals here. The disk original, that is. Le Group 1, so they're good. TCS 1, also good. Papillons 3, unpatched, and they also try it in their scroll text. Where was the heavy protection? I don't know if they were lucky by having the load process ending with 3, but at least they seemingly didn't identify where the heavy protection was, but they were lucky that the 8000F was within the boundaries of what should work. Hotline, they released 2 versions. One is a trained version that came 3 days after the original version, and their trained version also features 0 in 8000F and has a copy of Sultan's patch, including his Mr. Z string in reverse. Yes, I'm not saying it's a recrack, I'm just saying it's heavily inspired by Sultan, and nobody would take his string unless they were taking a look at why Sultan's version works and theirs does not. Dominators 6, that is actually, and it's unpatched, so that should also bug. Delirious 5, unpatched, but they should still be safe. Beastie Boys, and this is something that's really surprising me, 15, and they have a copy of Zoltan's. Inspirational again here. The RTS is on 36 4B, and then there is Mr. Z in reverse. Hotline, their first, the first release that Hotline did is the untrained one. That one is unpatched and it has 9 in the value, so that one should also bug. Danish Gold 3 unpatched. The only thing I had problems with here was how to exit the intro. I had to go into the machine code monitor and jump manually out of it because I had no idea how to get out of that intro. Triad 0, but they had the patch. So this is the original place where Zoltan implemented his patch before everybody else was inspired by it. Benker Brothers, they had OC in 8000F and it was unpatched, so that should also be bugging. You have basically a number of crackers approaching this, and I'm not saying that people did recrack as Triad's version, but Triad's version is the only one that is based on the tape, which we can for sure be sure that it's based on the tape, and which is properly cracked. The so the FairLight version, the cache version, and was there anyone else? No, the FairLight and the cache versions, they are seemingly from another source, so they didn't have to face that heavy tape protection. So they are different, and they are also, as far as I can see, fault-free. So Triad did a fault-free version, Cache did a fault-free version, FairLight did a fault-free version, but the only one who actually cracked it properly from tape was Zoltan. Zoltan, you did a great job. Now I've gone through all the versions and I really need to go to bed because tomorrow is work. So bye-bye. Okay, so that was the protection we found on Star Paws. You would have the same sort of protection on Hunchback at the Olympics. As Tom described, that one is sort of triggering a protection more automatically. So if it detects it crashes, it doesn't like sneak in an issue by trashing parts of the memory. That would just make the game trash later on. That's why I like the Star Paws implementation of the protection, because it will let you run the game for quite far into the game unless you know where to go to kind of trigger the crash. But that is the sneaky way. If the protection does not immediately manifest itself, you could have crackers push out inferior versions where the original actually works, but the crack does not. If you are producing games, I guess that's sort of a thing you would want to have. You would like the original to work perfectly, but you would like the cracks to be inferior and crash and not really work. Infusing doubt in the crack as a vehicle for getting access to games because they don't work, they are inferior to the original. That would be my thought if I was producing original. So thumbs up for the guys at Software Project, I think it's called, producing Star Paws, because I think this is a very nice implementation. I should also thank Tom, so SLC from Nostalgia, personally, but also as a participant of this Ultimate Tape Archive team. I think Tom mentioned that somebody mentioned it on their internal chat. So this is something brought up within the community of tape archivers. So great work, guys. You are doing an amazing work, and we are grateful that you are performing that, ensuring that the community would have access to these games in their original form long after the deterioration of the actual physical tape. That was everything I had planned for today. So thank you to the guys already mentioned, and also thank you to you for listening to this. And I hope to see you next week. Bye bye.